Alright, motherfucks. It's the hater, and we're gonna talk about Payback 2020 real fast. But in addition to that, I think I'm gonna have to start doing Monday Night Raw reviews, just because I haven't done as many videos as I'd like lately. But it's not really my fault. It's not like I don't want to do videos. I just don't know what to talk about. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing to really talk about. So I guess we can talk about Raw and just make fun of that. I guess, you know what I'm saying. However, I will say that Payback. I was gonna call it Backlash for a second, but whatever. That Payback actually wasn't that bad. You know what I'm saying? It really wasn't that bad. So I enjoyed it. We're gonna talk about it match for match, motherfucks, match for match. So we can kind of break down what was good and what was bad. Now, when I say I enjoyed it, this doesn't mean that it was all good, right? There was plenty of dumb shit that was around there, right? So first up, the match that I didn't watch because it was on the pre-show. I actually started watching the pre-show, but like not on time. So, like, I kind of caught up with myself, and I decided to skip the pre-show and just go directly to the pay-per-view. But apparently, Ruby Riott and Liv Morgan beat the Iconics. I mean, this has, like, Raw opening match written all over it. Like, does anyone really care about this at all? You know what I mean? So, certainly I don't. So, I don't really care about this. Like, Ruby Riott and Liv Morgan, like, let's just call it what it is. They're two failed wrestlers. Like, Liv Morgan had, like, months of, like, vignettes of her taking a bath, and then all of a sudden, like, she had, like, different makeup on. And people are like, oh, it's going to be like a new Liv Morgan. It's the same shit. Same shit, man, you know? And it's so similar that, like, she's forced to team with Ruby Riott again because nobody wants to see this garbage. So anyways, next up, we had what I thought was a pretty good match. It was Bobby Lashley versus Apollo Crews for the U.S. title. Now, here's the problem with this match, right? I mean, Apollo Crews, he's not bad. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's a big, strong guy. He's athletic. You know, he has no personality or charisma, but let's be honest, no one really does, right? You think Finn Balor has any personality and charisma? As a matter of fact, when I was at the Royal Rumble 2000, I guess 18, or maybe it was 2017, whatever, the fuck cares, the one that Nakamura won, right? I was at the Rumble for that, and what happened was, like, I was sitting in front of these two neckbeards, but they were nice neckbeards. And one of them was like he was actually black, which was funny because he didn't like Apollo Crews. And the hater's white, motherfuckers. And I don't like Finn Balor, right? And he was like, oh, he's like, Apollo Crews is so generic, right? And I'm like, dude, how do you like Finn Balor, but you don't like Apollo Crews? You know what I'm saying? That doesn't make any sense, you know? And he was like, oh, he's like, Finn Balor's not generic. And I'm like, yo, he's like a white Apollo Crews. And we laughed about it a little bit. But the point I'm trying to make is this. Apollo Crews, at least, unlike Finn Balor, he's like strong and can do power moves. You know what I mean? So I like him. However, Bobby Lashley is on another level. You know what I'm saying? Bobby Lashley is a better wrestler. He's a better human. So Bobby Lashley, in my opinion, should squash someone like Apollo. But in my opinion, Bobby Lashley should squash a lot of people. But they don't give him the credit he deserves. Nonetheless, motherfucks, Bobby Lashley eventually won. He did the little spine buster thing that he does, like the one-handed slam, basically. And then he strapped on that full Lashley, motherfucks. And Apollo Crews actually tapped out. I figured he would, like, pass out, but he didn't. He tapped out. And what was interesting was after the match, when Lashley and the Hurt Business were, like, posing, like, Apollo Crews went and attacked Lashley from behind, which I thought was weird because it's like, if you're a face, why would you do that? You know what I mean? Like you lost fair and square, fam. Like, nobody cheated, you know? But he was pissed off. So hopefully they have him join or something, because it would be a shame. I'm not gonna lie. It would be a shame to see Apollo Crews go back to the pre-show. You know, like, he deserves something. I mean, he's like, he doesn't really botch that much. Like, no one's saying he should be the next John Cena. You know what I'm saying? But he could easily become the next Finn Balor or the next Dolph Ziggler. You know what I'm saying? Next up, we had Big E versus Sheamus. This was also okay. Big E is obviously and always has been the talented one from the New Day. You know what I'm saying? Like, obviously, Xavier Woods is the one that made the New Day, like, a thing. Like, he's the one who, like, he's the mouthpiece, kind of. I mean, they all kind of talk equally, but he's kind of, like, the face. But Kofi Kingston is the worst one by far. Big E is great. Big E has a substantial amount of good moves. You know what I'm saying? Big E is charismatic in his own way. However, after he beat Sheamus with a big ending, which is a horrible move, right? After he beat Sheamus with a big ending, he went to, like, ringside, and he was like, he got in Corey Graves' face, and he was like, tell him about me, Graves, and he just kept yelling that, like, saying the same shit. It was really cringy. It was like, what do you mean tell him about you? Like, we already know who you are. Like, we already know the story. You know what I'm saying? All you did was beat Sheamus. You didn't beat John Cena. You know what I'm saying? Sheamus is a mid-carder now. I mean, decent match, don't get me wrong, but, like, he was, like, a little too hyped. You know what I'm saying? Next up, we had Matt Riddle versus King Corbin. I don't know how I feel about this. This match was all right too. Matt Riddle hit the floating bro, which is basically like a spinning senton type of thing from the top rope, like a corkscrew senton. The match was all right. King Corbin deserves better than this. King Corbin is actually one of the few people that actually understands wrestling. You know, I'm not sure how the anti-smart community that I'm grouped with feels about King Corbin, but I like King Corbin. Again, I'm not saying that King Corbin is the next Edge or John Cena, but he is the next. I don't know. He could easily be the next, like someone like Booker T, right? Or like JBL. He can be in that level. You know, like he should be a world champion. Like King Corbin needs to like gain some muscle mass. You know, so he looks more legit, but he's got a great finisher. He's charismatic, right? He's good on the mic, relatively speaking, and he understands wrestling, which is the foremost criteria, right? Matt Riddle's cool too. I don't dislike Matt Riddle. He won in a very underwhelming fashion in a match that felt meaningless, but nonetheless, he won, right? Next, we had Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax versus Bayley and Sasha for the women's tag team championship. No one cares about this. Shayna and Nia just have like transitional tag team written all over them. So I don't really give a rat's ass what happens to them. You understand what I'm saying? And now we're on to the good matches. Keith Lee versus Randy Orton. All right. First of all, Randy Orton is currently in a feud with the world champion Drew McIntyre. And most recently, Randy Orton punked Drew McIntyre in the head several times, causing like a fracture or whatever the fuck they're saying, right? So I don't understand why he's now wrestling Keith Lee, who just joined the main roster. You understand me? That's not good, right? I didn't enjoy this. The match was all right, but I did not enjoy the way this was booked, right? Like, it was like a 5-minute match and Keith Lee won clean against Orton. Now, this would be normal if Randy Orton was like, you know, wrestling AJ Styles for the U.S. title like he was a few years ago. That would be all right. But right now, Randy Orton is in the main event. Right now, Randy Orton is arguably the most main eventish guy they have aside from Drew McIntyre, right? So I don't like how Keith Lee, who just lost to Karrion Kross, beat Randy Orton. You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense. Like, this should at least turn into like a quasi push for Keith Lee. I mean, Keith Lee is never going to become like, you know, world champion, or if he does, it'll be like a bullshit title run, right? Like, at most, Keith Lee is going to reach like Lashley levels. He's like, and I mean current run Lashley, not like early run Lashley, which would have been a multiple time world champion by now. So Keith Lee, I mean, I like the kid, but let's be real. Like, this is limited. So him beating Randy Orton in such a critical time of Randy Orton's career is ridiculous. It makes absolutely no sense. You know what I'm saying? So, but it was what it was. Next up, we had clearly the match of the night. Dominic and Rey Mysterio versus Rollins and Murphy. All right. This was a good match. This match had a lot of like wrestling-ish scenarios, right? Like there was a lot of wrestling in this match, if you know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? Like pro wrestling, I mean. Like Seth Rollins was like dictating the pace. He was like screaming at Rey, screaming at Dominic. A few hot tags, of course. The finish, like the finishing sequence, I thought was really, really like good, right? For a couple of reasons. Number one, Rey Mysterio Hurricane Rana counters like a buckle bomb and kick combination so that Murphy kicks Seth Rollins in the face. And he kicked him well, right? Now, in real life, it's like Murphy should have been able to pull that kick back because he should have realized that the move was countered. But what are you going to do, right? So Seth Rollins takes a big kick and then goes to the outside. Murphy comes in. Rey Mysterio does like a head scissors, throws him in the ropes for the 619 position. And then Dominic gets tagged in, and he grabs Rey and he throws him to the outside, right? Seth Rollins is kind of like bent down, right? Bent over, if you will. And Rey Mysterio just slides out. He does a little slide thing that he does, you know, where he slides out and he just like kind of like sunset flip power bombs him into the barricade, right? It was really cool, I thought, right? Like it was a really cool way to make sure that Seth Rollins doesn't break up the pin. This allows Dominic to hit that 619 from the other side and hit the frog splash for the win. Dominic Mysterio is legit. Like, when I say legit, I'm not saying that he's like, you know, the next Rey Mysterio or anything like that. But he, considering that this is his second match, he has been able to carry himself very well, and he's not bad on the mic. You know, again, everything considered, right? Like, no one's comparing him to, like, Bully Ray. We're comparing him to, like, Kalisto and other people whose wrestling style is similar to his, right? Because those are the people that he's going to be competing with for a spot. It's going to be, like, for that Latino demographic, you know what I'm saying? So, like, he could be the next guy. He could be the next guy that they've been waiting for a long time. Like they've tried Andrade, Garza, all these people to get like the Hispanic audience like invested, and I guess it's not working because they keep finding new guys. And I mean, how can it work? Like if you're a person and you see like some jobber like Kalisto, you're like, I don't give a shit about this guy. Like I'm gonna go watch soccer or whatever the fuck is on Telemundo or something. You know what I'm saying? Lastly, we had the pretty good match. It was a pretty good match. The triple threat no holds barred match for the Universal Championship, right? Fiend comes out with his own entrance. Braun Strowman just like blindsides him and attacks him, right? Braun Strowman then proceeds to beat the shit out of the Fiend. The Fiend then counters, does a little crossbody thing, beats the shit out of Braun Strowman. This was actually pretty great because they were beating the shit out of each other, right? They were hurting each other. Like they were like doing some crazy things. I mean, it was a pretty short match, like I'd say around 15 minutes, but they were doing a lot of things to each other, you know? Like it felt like there was a lot of big moments. They like jumped, Braun Strowman tackles the Fiend off the stage. All these other things happen. Eventually, this ends. Roman Reigns didn't come out yet. The Fiend does like a superplex to Braun Strowman, and the now like, I mean, let's be real, the now like overplayed, ring collapsing spot happens, right? And but what was cool was that the match continued, obviously, right? Because it's a no holds barred triple threat match, which means that like you can't be disqualified. We need a winner, motherfuckers. Roman Reigns comes out and he tries to pretty much capitalize, and he beats them both with a chair. Long story short, Bray Wyatt eventually puts the mandible claw on Roman, who low blows Bray Wyatt right in his balls. You know what I'm saying? Bray Wyatt rolls out of the broken ring. Braun Strowman gets up, takes the spear. Roman Reigns 1, 2, 3. Now, this was good, but the problem with this match is this, right? Why wouldn't everyone do this, right? Why is Roman Reigns the first guy to do this in a triple threat match? Furthermore, like from a kayfabe perspective, how can Roman Reigns ensure that the Fiend just doesn't strap on the mandible claw on Braun Strowman and pin him, make him tap out just like that in the first 3 minutes? Or vice versa, Braun Strowman hits a power slam and pins the Fiend. Then what happens to Roman Reigns? He signed a contract for a match, right? Like imagine if the match ended before him. That would be a breach of contract, right? Kayfabe-wise, And also, I'd like to take a few minutes to talk about this whole Paul Heyman situation. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to do another video on that, but I just want to say that, like, this whole Roman Reigns with Paul Heyman thing, like, everything that happens with Paul Heyman is overrated by, like, all the internet wrestling fans, right? The whole internet wrestling community, as it's called, everyone loves Paul Heyman, right? Like, the smarks, the anti-smarks, all these jabrones, they all love Paul Heyman. I don't like Paul Heyman. Let me tell you why, motherfuckers. The reason I don't like Paul Heyman is because he's so overrated, right? People tend to remember all the good things Paul Heyman has done. Actually, I won't do the video. I'll just talk about it here. They tend to remember all the good things that Paul Heyman has done, right? Like, which really aren't that many things. Like this guy definitely has more losses than he has wins. You know what I'm saying? Like, think about all the times that Paul Heyman has failed, all right? Most recently, he failed as, like, whatever the fuck he was, like a booker or something, or producer for SmackDown, right? They fired him. He failed. You know what I'm saying? He failed in ECW. I don't care if ECW, like, is like this big deal that everyone likes. They like it the same way they like CM Punk. They just want to chant the name because they pretend it's better than it was. And I like ECW, don't get me wrong. But let's not pretend it was like the greatest thing ever, right? It was like a couple of years of a company, right? And it wasn't even like that great. Like very few memorable things happened, you know what I'm saying? But there were a few, don't get me wrong. So he failed with that. Like, he bankrupted the company. He owes people money still, allegedly, right? Let's see, what else did he fail with? Curtis Axel, motherfuckers. Remember Curtis? Remember Curtis Axel? He failed that completely, right? It was so bad that Curtis Axel, like, didn't get anything from being associated with Paul Heyman. Not one thing. Like, nothing was gained by Paul Heyman being attached to Curtis Axel, right? He beat Triple H a couple of times, and then he started losing left and right, and then he ended up in right Axel. And then, ironically, Curtis Axel put himself over several times. Curtis Axel is great. Like, he has put himself over so many times. You know what I'm saying? Like first of all, Axelmania, he was over. Rybaxel was kind of over. The B Team was over. You know what I mean? Like, this guy keeps trying to do it himself. Like, when he started doing the skull chants, that was over, right? He was getting over by himself. Paul Heyman, all he did was just say, "This is Curtis Axel," and then nothing happened from it, right? Paul Heyman completely failed as a manager. That was one of the worst managerial connections ever, right? He didn't do anything for him, right? Then we had Cesaro, another guy. Like, what happens is this. People either get over or Vince McMahon decides, we're going to put this guy over. And they just attach him to Paul Heyman, right? Cesaro was so over. So over when he was with Jack Swagger and everything, right? He had just eliminated Big Show or whatever. I think it was Big Show from the Andre the Giant Battle Royal, right? Just showing that kind of a monster he is at WrestleMania. And then like as soon as he gets momentum on his own, and they're like, his push is coming, they're like, now go be with Heyman, right? Which of course was a death sentence. Nothing happened until he was like, I'm not with Heyman anymore. And then he went back to exactly what he was before Heyman. You know? Like Heyman joined him at the top of his push, if you will, at the top of his stock, and then just did nothing for him. Did absolutely nothing for him, right? Paul Heyman and CM Punk, same thing. CM Punk is the one that brought Heyman back. You know what I mean? Like, it's because of CM Punk that Paul Heyman came back. And it's because of CM Punk that people think Paul Heyman is great. Because the evidence isn't there, motherfuckers. You know what I'm saying? It just isn't there. You know? CM Punk brought him back, and he added nothing to CM Punk. CM Punk was doing just fine, and he continued to do just fine, with or without Heyman, right? Nothing changed here. The only thing that changed was like Paul Heyman was like, oh, okay, like, I'm cool with it now. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm going to be with CM Punk. Another thing, Ryback, right? Ryback was also a Paul Heyman guy. Ryback joined Paul Heyman. He became a Paul Heyman guy. Nothing came of it. Nothing at all came of it. Again, he was doing better before, and he was doing better after, right? It was so bad that two failed Heyman guys, Curtis Axel and Ryback, had to become a tag team, right? They became a tag team and got over on their own despite Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman sucks. There's nothing good about Paul Heyman. The only thing Paul Heyman... Heidenreich, remember Heidenreich? Heidenreich sucks, right? Nobody cared about Heidenreich. All that happened was this. Paul Heyman was correctly matched with Brock Lesnar. But it's not because Paul Heyman is great that Brock Lesnar got over. Brock Lesnar got over because he's Brock Lesnar. This is a testament to how important the wrestler is, right? And how unimportant Paul Heyman is. Because Paul Heyman has tried several dozen times to manage people. And then like yesterday, maybe it was in the pre-show or something, I don't know. But one of the jabrones was like, oh yeah, they asked, I think it was JBL asked Jerry Lawler in the pre-show. He was like, Paul Heyman is one of the best managers, Jerry, right? And I'm like, what do you mean he's one of the best managers? Like, why? Because he managed Brock Lesnar? That's it. That's the only person he's managed that's been successful, right? In WWE at least. You know what I'm saying? Everything else has been an utter failure. And it's one thing to manage someone and be okay, right? Like Zeb Coulter managed Jack Swagger, and it was okay. Like, it worked. Zeb Coulter added something. Jack Swagger got a push. You know, something was there. Like, that's an okay manager. But Paul Heyman just ruins careers. He just tells people, I'm going to be your manager, and this ruins their career. So he's not one of the best managers. He's one of the worst managers. Brock Lesnar had got over on himself, right? They got rid of Paul Heyman. He was still over. Paul Heyman then went on to manage Big Show, Kurt Angle, and all these people, and nothing came of it. These were all people that were established. They're all more charismatic than Paul Heyman, right? Kurt Angle's better on the mic than Paul Heyman. Big Show is better on the mic than Paul Heyman, in my opinion, right? Paul Heyman just comes out and says the same thing. He's been saying the same thing for years. This guy sucks, you know? So the fact that Roman Reigns is with Paul Heyman means absolutely nothing to me. You know what I'm saying? I understand that Roman Reigns is going to have to carry Paul Heyman once again. Paul Heyman just gets carried by people. He never carried anyone. You know what I mean? Like, Brock Lesnar comes back and he gets Paul Heyman his job back again, basically, after the whole CM Punk fiasco. You know, it's like, oh, okay, here you go. Like, we need Paul Heyman now because Brock Lesnar doesn't want to talk. And it's not because Brock can't talk. I mean, kind of it is, right? But Brock Lesnar is exciting and charismatic in his own way. You know what I'm saying? So there you have it, right? Roman Reigns with Paul Heyman is a waste of time. It helps his heel run because it made him more like, you know, like he was like, oh, you need to check the contract. You know what I'm saying? Like, well, like that type of shit where he's like more careful and more like, you know, what's the word? Like, he scrutinizes contracts and things like that. But at the end of the day, let's call it what it is, motherfucks. Roman Reigns is going to have to carry this on his own. Paul Heyman's not going to add shit. So there you go. But Roman Reigns' heel turn, I can dig it. I prefer my theory, which would have been that Roman Reigns just beats the shit out of the Fiend and Braun Strowman, and his argument is like, dude, you're just below me. You're two goofs that fight in a swamp. You know, where they showed Alexa Bliss during the match. Like, I don't give a fuck. You know what I'm saying? Like, that should be Roman Reigns' thing. Like, he's like a serious wrestler. He's just there to, like, wrestle and win championships. You know, he's not there to, like, wear a mask and be like, I'm scary. You know, that stupid shit. Like, no one cares about that. Or Braun Strowman, like, oh, Braun! Oh, I got a haircut. Like, nobody cares. They made it seem as if his haircut was supposed to be, like, this big thing. It's because he was balding. He's bald, so they have to cut his hair. Like every other bald guy in wrestling, right? Like, I don't know why these bald guys now just have long hair until, like, the last second, and then they cut it. Like Shawn Michaels, Baron Corbin, Braun Strowman. Like, just cut it before, man. You know, man up, dude. Just cut it. So there you go. Or get them hair plugs, motherfuckers. But anyways, yeah, the event was pretty good. Roman Reigns being champion is obviously better than The Fiend or Braun Strowman being champion. The Fiend shouldn't even understand what a championship is. The Fiend should be this retard who just comes out and fights people because he wants to hurt them. The Fiend should have absolutely no desire to win championships. You know, The Fiend should not go for a quick pin. Like during the match, that was a bad thing. I understand what they were going for, but Braun Strowman hits the power slam and tries to pin The Fiend, which makes sense because if you're someone that's wrestling The Fiend, you want the match to be as quick as possible so you don't have to deal with The Fiend, right? Then The Fiend gets up and hits the Sister Abigail, I believe, or he did something. What did he do? I think he hit the Sister Abigail, right? Yeah, he hit the Sister Abigail and he went to pin Braun Strowman. Wait, what? Why is he doing that? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's something Bray Wyatt would do. The Fiend should be concerned with hurting someone. Then The Fiend went and got his little mallet and all that other shit. But you understand what I'm getting at. You know, like, there has to be some logic behind this, right? So, Roman Reigns coming out, I understand that him coming out, like, mid-match or, like, during the end of the match, I get what they're going for. They're going for the, like, this guy's just here to win. He doesn't care about, like he doesn't care enough to put in an effort, right? But, I mean, I don't know. It didn't make much sense kayfabe-wise, and, like, I don't know. I would like to see some other moves to Roman Reigns, right? But I get it. I get that they were trying to get the title on him with very little effort, just to show that he's gonna wreck things and leave. So that was pretty cool. That was one of the highlights of the show. Obviously, him winning the title. Dominic and Rey was match of the night. Keith Lee versus Randy Orton was thing that didn't make sense of the night. I don't know where this is gonna go. I mean, I could see Keith Lee tonight on Raw wrestling like Ricochet or someone of that level. You know what I'm saying? Like who is on the same level as Ricochet, but a heel, like Garza. I could see him wrestling Garza or Andrade, right, and beating them clean. I could totally see that. They changed his entrance music. I could just see him winning, and then just doing this for a few more weeks, and then having Eric Rowan-esque career, if you will. But we'll see. You know what I'm saying? That's another thing. I'm gonna do a video about Eric Rowan. It's not gonna be just about him, but you'll see. It's gonna come today as well, motherfuckers. See ya, bitches.